So, in today's practice, we'll be talking about gaslighting. So, imagine the scenario: you're having an argument with your partner after finding out that they lied to you about where they were. So, you try to calmly approach the conversation in an attempt to understand what happened. But it quickly escalated into a heated argument. So your aggravated partner begins to make statements that do not make sense or are from the outside irrelevant. Maybe saying things like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I was at the gym. You're crazy. It's like you're stalking me and need to know where I am all the time. Or things like, well, where were you the other day? Flipping the narrative. You're overreacting. So these are the things. Each of these responses represent a different form of gaslighting, a form of psychological manipulation that causes you to question your own feelings and thoughts. So, in the first example, your partner is lying to you. In the second, they are discrediting you by calling you certain names. In the third, they are distracting you or deflecting you. And in the last one, they are minimizing you. So these are the four aspects I think everybody should keep in mind when it comes to gaslighting is lies, second, discredit, third, distraction, fourth, minimization. So these are the four main areas which from the literature and from what I've known is quite prevalent. So just want to highlight these four things. So there are a few other forms as well, and we'll explore that. But the main idea is that the person who is gaslighting you tries to undermine your sense of reality and therefore question whether your emotions are valid. It is a form of emotional control, and in the worst cases, it becomes abuse. And most commonly occurs, I want to say, in romantic partnerships, more commonly, but not just limited to. It happens in workplaces, it happens in schools, it happens in actually pretty much parent teacher meetings, it happens in family dynamics a lot. Yeah, it happens in more serious offenses also. So it is very common to talk about it because it's so ingrained in our societies that this is something which is normal. And this is one way to look at it. If you are apologizing when you didn't do anything, then you are being gaslit. So that is the first thing you need to notice is, are you apologizing too much? Are you apologizing uh, to certain people more than others? So just to understand some of the key terminologies we use when we use emotional abuse, is a way to control another person by manipulating their emotions. It is often more subtle than physical abuse, but can be as harmful. So there is no there is no difference there in terms of how harmful it can be. It can form a dangerous attachment to the abuser. This is also very important, as the victim is too hurt or afraid to cut ties. And this is, again, there are extreme circumstances. We are not talking about the extremes, we are talking about the middle range. In normal life, there are a lot of instances where we feel hurt or afraid to cut ties from certain people because we feel like they have control over us. And it's kind of borderline narcissism. So, this is another personality disorder where an individual has an inflated sense of self, a need for excessive attention and admiration, and lack of empathy for others, which leads to troubled relationships. So, they often engage in gaslighting behaviors as they rarely admit their own flaws and become aggressive when criticized. The other aspect is they are likely to place blame on others, lie, and attempt to manipulate others' emotions, which are forms of gaslighting. And the third term or idea you need to start to remember is something called medical gaslighting. And it is very interesting to see that in cases of trauma survivors, with the skills and knowledge to overcome their trauma, medical gaslighting is when a medical professional trivializes a person's health concerns. So they might tell them they are hypochondriac, for example, someone who worries excessively about their health or otherwise dismiss their concerns. And this is very prevalent in a lot of the health circles, even in therapeutic and counseling circles. So I have had first-hand experience of therapy and counseling from various people, and there has been instances where my concerns have been blatantly minimized and kind of gaslit in a way. And this is from people who are professional or doing this as their work and helping others, and that often leaves people feeling like they are stuck. So my challenge or my advice is always to understand if that is true, getting second opinions, third opinions, even. So, yeah, medical gaslighting is a thing. And I'm not saying all medical professionals are doing this. I'm just saying, just being on the lookout of for these. All medical professionals have a noble job of helping people, which is a wonderful thing. And then we all know about racial gaslighting, which is when gaslighting techniques are employed on a group of people due to their race, etc. And this has been very prevalent, uh, and it's very important as well. And someone might minimize the hardships of an entire group of people, especially in the minority communities, and their experiences and the hardships they've been through. Then obviously we have political gaslighting, which I don't need to talk about too much. And the most I'm interested in this because this is where I've been in institutions working with companies and organization philosophies. Institutional gaslighting is something which is very important. So for the work I'm doing with companies, especially when it comes to bringing mindfulness to help companies and leaders, it is important to understand gaslighting. So when gaslighting occurs at an organizational level, so for example, the CEO could hide some information or lie about particular details. Alternately, co-worker might downplay your achievements so you don't feel worthy of promotion. And this is in 15, sorry, in 16, 17, 18 years of my work experience in corporate world. That was an eye opener for me. And that is so ingrained in the corporate culture. Coworker might deny or downplay someone else's achievements blatantly in front of everyone. just so you don't feel worthy of of the next steps. And this is why I want to talk about gaslighting in institutional and corporate circles as well. So, what is the history? What is the history of gaslighting? Gaslighting got its name from a 1938 play. It's called Gaslight by British playwright Patrick Hamilton. So, in the play, which was later made into a movie in 1944, just remember how far back this is, the husband wants his wife to be admitted to a mental institution so that he could access her fortune, which causes him to try to convince her she is going mad. And this is the movie. This is what gaslight means. So, in one scene, Paula, the wife, notes that gaslights in their home are dimming and brightening for no reason and tells her husband. Gregory convinces her that she's imagining it and seeing things. However, he was switching the attic lights on and off to cause the gaslight to flicker. At multiple times through the play, Gregory uses similar strategies to discredit, as we talked about discrediting, Paula's perception of reality. But the term began to be used in clinical settings and in academics in the 1980s, most commonly in reference to the gender power dynamics, specifically when males would engage in gaslighting behaviors after engaging in, say, extramarital affairs to avoid blame. So this was most common. So they would suggest their wives were reacting irrationally or overreacting, or tell them they would suffer societal shame if people knew their husband had an affair. But an important point to note here is, although we talked about this, gaslighting is not in the Diagnostic and Statistic Manual of Mental Disorders. So it's called the DSM. And this is the compendium of all the disorders which psychiatrists and psychologists and psychotherapists use to diagnose people with disorders. And gaslighting is not in them. But since the 1980s has been very popular, and it's sometimes used outside its proper definition. And this can be problematic. So as when it is used to describing non-gaslighting behaviors, the gaslighting effects are downplayed. The watered down use of gaslighting, in fact, gaslights its victims. In 2018, another interesting point, Oxford Dictionary said that gaslighting was one of the most popular words of the year, and its use and popularity in Google searches has only increased since then. And now we talking about it actually makes it even more. But the term is thrown around just about everyone. So just being careful when we start to talk about gaslighting and what it is actually. And when it comes to people who are in the wellness industry, it is very important to you and to everyone who is trusting people to deliver helpful feedback and helpful content that can promote wellness. It is important to understand this next idea, which is there is another technique which gaslighting involves. It is called compassionate gaslighting. So, this is using compassionate words as a weapon. For example, a gaslighter might say that they love you and would never purposefully hurt you, which makes you question your perception of events after being hurt. They also might try to rewrite history. They might twist the details of something that happened to make you second guess whether you remember it correctly. And they also may try to isolate you from your friends and family who might know better. Another technique which makes it hard to free yourself is, is something called warm cold behavior. It is something, it's a rapid alternation between kindness and malice, which throws some people off and leaves some unsure what to expect. So, especially in the wellness industry, all the professionals here should be understanding the role of compassion, kindness, and how it can be used to manipulate people, and be on the lookout for any of these. So if you start to notice these empty gestures, that is a sign there is something wrong. So while there are many behaviors associated with gaslighting, these are the five which are common. So withholding, refusing to understand or listen, countering, questioning the victim's memory of events, blocking, diverting, changing subject, trivializing, minimalizing, and forgetting and denial. So let us just look at what it means in terms of mental health. So the most important thing is it can lead to doubts of their feelings and reality itself. So questioning their own judgment, making people feel insecure, confused, alone, and powerless. Think about it. If you're constantly told by someone you trust that you are too sensitive, you're crazy, it could be hard to make rational decisions or trust yourself. So, emotional manipulation like this can be just as harmful as physical manipulation. And it denies someone a sense of validity and worth. And it can lead to trauma and all sorts of complex PTSD symptoms alongside physiological and psychological effects. There is cases of gaslighting induced anxiety, depression, and isolation. So to break away from relationship where gaslighting is occurring, to heal gaslighted individuals usually need to become aware of it and then speak to someone. Oftentimes, it takes a really long time to realize that this is being happening, and its associated behaviors are so subtle. And because they have been practicing this for a long time, they're pretty good at all of the behaviors, whereas people on the receiving end are practicing without their own volition, being the victim. So just take a moment here. It's just because it's an interesting and yes, thought provoking topic. I just want us to just take a moment here just to notice whatever comes up. Even keeping a journal at hand, just writing down things can help you with this. I want to talk about additionally people that employ these behaviors often do so because of their own insecurities and their own insatiable needs of attention and admiration. So when someone tries to leave a gaslighter, they often employ what is called the vacuum cleaner technique. The gaslighter will apologize, tell their victim they love them, and promise to never behave the same way again. So it's like kind of sucking them back. And again, there are many uh, different opinions about how some people would deny that there exists this manipulative behavior that can be categorized as gaslighting. However, it is widely debated that exactly constitutes of this behavior. So, what is it exactly is something which is widely discussed. Gaslighting is a manipulating behavior, but not all manipulative behaviors are gaslighting. Just want to ensure that you understand that. And one of the research into this topic, there are two clearly distinct forms of manipulation and gaslighting, and they are so different. For example, subtle manipulation techniques are often used in advertising to get people to buy something. Manipulation becomes gaslighting when it becomes a series of behaviors where the sole intent is to gain control of someone else. Then you are getting into gaslighting behaviors. So that doesn't mean that anyone who tries to control you is using these techniques. For example, a police officer might try to control you if they have seen you do something illegal. However, they are not gaslighting unless their behaviors makes you question your understanding of reality. And indeed, if you knew you committed the crime, their behavior would be understandable. So that is that. Alternatively, if a police officer was to plant drugs on an individual and then convince them that it's theirs, that would be an example of gaslighting. So just want to take this moment. So gaslighting has to do with manipulating a person's understanding of reality, right? Which typically involves the victim to believe a particular narrative. The stories we tell have profound impacts on our decisions as they impact how we process the world around us. So one of the ways to get out of, or once you understand that this is happening, is to start to seek help and start to write a different narrative, start to um, disarm these tendencies and behaviors through different techniques. And that is what is important in understanding. One of the most important way is to disengage. So not when you start to notice there is something off, just walk away, do something else, go into some. When you start to notice these things are happening, go outside, different environment. So there are many ways you can work through it, and it's all obviously workable because it is something I've learned for myself. Certain ways I have used used it to not control people, but at least subconsciously or consciously had these tendencies with, especially people who we are together with, in love with, and so this is very important. Sometimes these behaviors are so So conditioned that you don't even notice you're doing it. So whenever you notice, just that's a moment of mindfulness, bringing that mindful energy to this and saying, it's okay. It's okay that you might have done it in the past, but that doesn't mean you cannot change. It's okay to learn and to move and to apologize. And as much as I would like to say all gaslighters are not good people, that is not true. A lot of them are really great people with their own insecurities, but they found themselves in a way they don't know how to behave in any other way because of conditioning, insecurities. So, yes, there is different forms of uh, gaslighting, and each is different, but some of the most uh, some forms of gaslighting is easier for us to manage and learn from and move out of if identified quickly. So if you notice things happening within your circle, please call out, please message, please uh, make it aware that this is happening to the person or the people who are doing this to you. And if you feel like you are one who might be using these behaviors in order to not to manipulate, but just being genuine, also is an opportunity for reflection. So, yeah, thank you for listening in today. Today, we talked about gaslighting in the world of wellness and how we can be aware of it. So, thank you for listening. Hope you found it useful.